Hey there, everybody. Andy here from Legendary Tales, and welcome back to Tales of Legend, a tabletop role-playing game for your worlds, your heroes, and your stories. On this episode of How to Play, we're going to talk about the different types of weapons, armor, and consumable magic gear that is available in Tales of Legend, both in the free rules and the core rules version. Although many of the features of these items will be familiar to anyone who plays other fantasy RPG games, you will also find some more unique and interesting facets with Tales of Legend that you will want to keep in mind as you take your character on adventures. Thanks for joining in. Now let's begin. First off, let's talk about armor and the myriad of ways your hero can go about increasing defenses. As you hopefully know, Tales of Legend has two different defense types: physical defense and mental defense. Physical defense deals with attacks to the body, be it weapons, claws, or a dragon's fire, while mental defense is your hero's ability to shrug off magical attacks, psionic effects, or other such hazards that attack the mind instead of the body. Physical defense comes up much more often than mental defense, especially at early levels. As the heroes take on creatures with more esoteric and exotic abilities, mental defense will come into play more and more. This isn't a hard and fast rule, however. It is entirely possible for a lower level group of heroes to deal with a creature that attacks their mental defense. However, generally speaking, even at the highest levels, you will be dealing with assaults against your physical defense. Therefore, making your physical defense higher is more important earlier and more often. So, back to armor. In Tales of Legend, we don't have different types of armor. Instead, your hero is either armored or not. And we don't tell you what types of armor you are wearing. If you have the type of hero that normally wears gambeson, padded armor, or leathers, you get to decide whether mechanically that counts as armor or not. So whether your hero concept includes a shirtless berserker with shoulder pads and bracers, a bandit covered in dark leathers, or a knight covered in full plate armor, all of these hero concepts can use armor. Armor is the most expensive thing a level 1 hero can buy, costing 750 of your world's currency. A hero that is wearing armor has their physical defense increased by 4. A hero has a base physical defense of 10, so a hero wearing armor with no other bonuses has a physical defense of 14. Now, compared to most low-level creatures, this is a fairly good defense. Most creatures that a level 1 or 2 hero will come in contact with will have a hit bonus between 1 and 4. This means that, with a d20 roll, even a creature with a plus 4 bonus to their accuracy rolls will only have a 50-50 chance of hitting you. You can increase your physical defense even more by using a shield. A shield uses one of your hands, but increases your physical defense by another plus 1. This shield can be whatever size or shape you want. If you ever want an even higher physical defense, you are going to have to invest in different aspect bonuses. The Armored Fighter aspect bonus found under Physicality increases your armor by an additional plus 2, and your shield by an additional plus 1. That means that a hero wearing armor will have a physical defense of 16, and if the hero is also holding a shield, 18. This level of physical defense is good enough to block hits from even mid-tier creatures fairly consistently. Finally, if you want even more physical defense with your armor, you are going to need advanced aspect bonuses, masterwork armor and shields, enchanted armor and shields, or magical gear, which goes beyond the scope of this video. By the way, for those of you who really hate the idea of physical defense relying on armor at all, you also have the dodge and mystical defense aspect bonus options in the grace and focus lists. Now moving on to weapons. There are two kinds of weapons in Tales of Legend, melee and ranged. I'm going to begin with melee weapons, which have some unique features. Instead of having different kinds of melee weapons listed for you in different tables, we boil weapons down to a few basic properties and allow you, the player, to tell us what your weapon is. The 4 types of melee weapons are small, light, flexible, and powerful weapons. We will also need to know if the weapon deals crush, slice, or stab damage. We will go over the differences in these damage types in a different video. Small weapons are obviously the smallest usable weapons in Tales of Legend. They deal 1d4 damage and have 2 distinct properties. First, they can be thrown at a range of 50 feet. Secondly, they can be concealed on your person using a concealed roll. A good example of a small weapon would be a dagger. I would rule a dagger to be primarily a stabbing weapon. Or maybe you just want to throw a rock. A rock will be a small crushing weapon. Light weapons are larger one-handed melee weapons. They deal 1d6 damage instead of 1d4. They can still be thrown up to 25 feet. Both small and light weapons can be used in a single hand each for heroes that want to fight with a melee weapon in each hand. Good examples of light weapons would be hammers for crushing, scimitars for slicing, or short swords for stabbing. Flexible weapons are next. Flexible weapons deal different damage whether or not you have something in your offhand. Flexible weapons are most often paired with a shield. They deal 2d4 damage if you have another weapon in the offhand, or 1d6 plus 1d4 damage if you don't have something else held. Typically, these weapons cannot be thrown or used in the offhand without specific bonuses. However, personally, I can make an exception for something like a spear when it comes to throwing. Long swords, flails, and lances are excellent examples of flexible weapons. Finally, we have powerful weapons. These weapons cannot be held with anything else using both of your hands and deal 2d6 damage. No fancy tricks, just big damage. Examples of powerful weapons could be a scythe or a great axe for slicing, a tree or a giant hammer for crushing, or some sort of polearm or pike for stabbing. Now we get into ranged weapons. This is one of the only times that we are more specific in Tales of Legend, as it is designed for a fantasy setting. The ranged weapons are sling, blowgun, light bow, light crossbow, heavy bow, or heavy crossbow. Let's go over their properties. A sling has a range of 50 feet and deals 1d4 crushing damage. The sling has the advantage of being the lightest, cheapest, and easiest to conceal ranged weapon. The sling also has a special property that allows it to be used without ammunition. It is assumed that you can find something to throw with it. Next is the blowgun, with a range of 25 feet. Although it is cheap, the darts that it shoots are quite expensive. Instead of dealing damage, the blowgun deals status effects based on the different types of darts that are used. Darts of affliction inflict the afflicted status, and darts of agony deal the agony status. We will discuss what each status effect does in a future video. The light bow is fairly cheap and easy to use. It uses arrows, has a range of 150 feet, and deals 1d6 stab damage. A user with a bow loses aptitude when trying to shoot at a target within melee range. A creature with a bow loses aptitude when trying to shoot at a target within melee range. Another useful thing to know about bows is that you recover half of the arrows spent at the end of a combat scenario, rounded down. This is particularly useful in early levels when money is a bit more scarce. The light crossbow is a more expensive choice for when you want a damage boost. It uses crossbow bolts and has a range of 100 feet. That's 50 less than the light bow, but the trade is that it deals 2d4 stab damage instead of 1d6. Two other things to note. Crossbows are unable to shoot at creatures in melee range, and crossbow bolts can't be recovered after a combat scenario. Now we get into the big guns, so to speak. The heavy bow has a massive 200-foot range and deals 2d4 damage, the same as the light crossbow. But you get to have all the same advantages as the light bow. You can attack in melee range as long as you don't add any aptitude bonus, and you still get to recover half of your spent arrows after a fight. Finally, the most expensive and heaviest hitting ranged weapon is the heavy crossbow. At a range of 150 feet, it ties with the light bow. But the trade-off for not being able to shoot in melee or recover your ammunition is a massive 1d6 plus 1d4 damage. This is the most damage you can deal with a ranged weapon in Tales of Legend. Now, all of the weapons, armor, and shield are described in the starting gear section of Hero Creation. This allows you to spend your starting currency on gear. But you will notice that there is a small third section as well, magic gear. There are two pieces of magic gear that are available to even level 1 heroes, the Elixir of Vitality and the Elixir of Restoration. So, for our last section of this video today, we are going to talk about consumable magic gear in Tales of Legend. Now, the full core rules have many more magic gear and options for enchanting weapons and armor, and there are actually 10 different consumables. I'll list them briefly. Not only do you have the elixirs of vitality and restoration, but you also have elixirs of might, agility, clarity, fortune, and mana. You also have 2 weapon coatings, the oil of affliction and the oil of agony. And finally, you have the rune of destruction. Once used, these magical consumables are lost, and each cost a default of 500 of the game's currency. Let's get into the specifics of the Elixir of Vitality and Restoration, as these two are available to your heroes as early as level 1. You can take the Use action to take an elixir, or feed one to another creature within melee range. When a creature takes an Elixir of Vitality, they gain 5 resolve per hero level, and automatically lose the Wounded and or Dying status effects. This is the basic healing potion for Tales of Legend, except there is no such thing as a more advanced healing potion. This elixir is equally effective at level 1 as it is at level 15, as its effects scale with the heroes. The Elixir of Restoration serves as the curing potion in Tales of Legend. When you take a use action with an Elixir of Restoration, it ends any and all of the following status effects: Afflicted, Agony, and Staggered. It is worth noting that a creature can have multiple applications of Staggered, as well as any and all of these status effects happening all at the same time. This is when an Elixir of Restoration becomes important. It isn't as important as an Elixir of Vitality, especially in the earliest levels, but you never know when you might want one handy. And that covers all the basics for armor, weapons, and consumables in the free rules of Tales of Legend. Next time on How to Play, we will be discussing status effects and damage properties and how to inflict them. I hope you will join me for that next video. If you are enjoying these tutorials, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, taking a look at our website at legendarytalesrpg.com, and joining our Discord server. I hope to see you all in the next video. Have a wonderful day, everybody.